That is greater confinement now. That's confinement, but it's greater confinement because black people, the non-white people of the planet, in the system of white supremacy, are already born in prison. They are already confined. We're confined to certain areas of the world where we're told where the borders are and that you can't cross these borders without permission. Permission from whom? From the white supremacists, either directly or indirectly. You have to get their permission if you are a person of color. Now, what about the white supremacists themselves? Do these borders apply to them? Well, if they say so, it applies to them. But if they say, no, it doesn't apply to anybody who's white that believes in racism, then it doesn't apply. So there's a contradiction there in place, but it makes it very clear one thing, and that is borders themselves are a form of confinement if only one segment of the world's population has total control over those borders. Where the borders will be, when the borders will expand, or when they will retract, or when there will be no borders at all in certain places. And then there will be multiple borders in any place that certain people, and the certain people meaning those white people who believe in racism, set the borders. So the borders are always in a state of flux and confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So the non-white people are automatically confined by a system, not by any geographical borders.
Okay.
They're confined by the system of white supremacy, which means your border, you're born with your border. Your border is your dark skin. And this dark skin automatically means you can only go and do this and that in certain places that are set aside for you. If you show up in a certain place, a certain time, might be just an area like a swimming pool, and you show up there, and people are not used to seeing your dark skin there, then that's a border. And you may be confined by saying you are restricted from coming in the area of this swimming pool where there are white people. We don't particularly care for dark-skinned people polluting our water. And you are a pollution. You are an alien creature. It's like having some type of animal in my swimming pool. So what are you doing here? The swimming pool is not for animals. The animal bath is over on the other side of town.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what? Greater confinement. So we are born with our borders. And when we are put into narrow confinement, that is what we call greater confinement.
Okay.
But we're confined anywhere we go in the world if you're a person of color.
Yes, sir.
Confined by whom? The people who believe in racism. That's by whom?
Yes, sir. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call. Phone lines are now open. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. Let's see. This brother has written, he says, Mr. Fuller, the dangers of greater confinement. Why and how do we avoid greater confinement in the system of white supremacy?
You just do the best you can, because a greater confinement is decided by the white supremacists. They can make any kind of law that they choose to make, and they do this periodically. They take a review, you might say, of all the laws they have on the books, and then they'll just make laws saying, now we're going to put all these dark-skinned people in this particular place. We're going to use real estate tricks and whatnot to have them all in this particular place. This will be a sort of confinement. And this place will be distant from the places where we will allow them to have jobs. So that means that when they get up in the morning, we're going to make sure that there's not adequate highways there between where they reside at night and where they work during the day.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make sure that where they reside at night is a great distance from where they work during the day, and that the highway system will not sustain the number of people who are going to use it. See, they are great mathematicians. They figure everything out. Everything. They don't miss nothing.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So black people, for instance, will wake up and run to their vehicles, and the ones they're allowed to have, or to some metro system, rail system or something, and they will all crowd in, and they will go bumper to bumper or whatever, trying to get to work on time.
Mm-hmm.
And the time will be set so that they know, the people who have the jobs and whatnot, who set up the jobs, they know that on average, most of the black people are going to be late most of the time.
Mm.
All right? They already know this.
They already know that, yeah.
See, so they can always have a legitimate reason, quote unquote, for firing you. Said, well, we can sympathize with you, but you do good work. You're a darn good employee, and we knew that when we hired you. But my goodness, I mean, it seems like you could get to work on time. It just seems like, and so the black person says, well, I try to do my best, but a truck turned over, and then I was delayed, and this and that and
yes,
whatnot. Sir. And well, we don't have anything to do with that, but sorry about that, but we're just going to have to let you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's an effect of confinement, but you don't look at it like it's confinement.
Yes, sir.
See, you never even thought about.
Mm-hmm.
They figured out well in advance where you would reside, and that where you would reside would be too far for you to reliably make it to the place where they, in advance, had figured they would allow you to have a job. And, it's a real simple, easy thing to do.
Yes, sir.
And so you're confined.
Okay.
That's just an example.
Okay. What I'm going to do here...
And greater confinement is when you lose your job.
Yes, sir.
And then you start robbing and stealing. Now they really got you.
Okay.
All right. Now you go into much greater confinement.
Yes, sir. Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. There was a question concerning it, but I'm going to take this phone call, and then we'll do the question. Go ahead, caller. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question, please.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. My name is Jessica, and I'm calling in. I have been listening to Mr. Fuller for a short time, but just to give you a little background before I ask my question. So my grandmother teaches me this, has always taught me the same concept as the book about minimizing conflict to minimize contact. And I have always practiced this principle. To make a long story short, at my job, I say to myself, so recently, the other day, I got off from work, and I got a strange message from a lady that I work with. She got my phone number from our index at my job, and she began to text me and tell me that she feels that there's animosity between us, and that there's friction, and that I hate her. And when I asked her why she felt this way, she told me that people had been telling her this. And when I asked her who told her, she refused to tell me. So I said to her, well, since you won't tell me who it is, I have no way of being able to get further information, but I have never said such a thing, and it's always my intention to work constructively and peacefully with my coworkers. And so I wanted to know Mr. Fuller's opinion on how to handle the situation, and should I discuss it with my direct supervisor?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Someone is texting you on the job saying that there's a rumor going around that you hate the woman?
Yes, sir.
And she's put this in writing, you might say, or texting?
Yes, sir. And this woman is a suspected white supremacist.
Well, the way you react to it is just say, what did you do? You know, everything comes down to what did you do, and let us specify that.
Okay.
And you can you say very little in writing. In fact, you say very little, period, even verbally, because whatever you say verbally, you should be willing to say in writing. So be careful about every word that you use involving anything in your employment or in any other circumstance, for that matter. That's just the codified way of doing things. So what you do is just ask questions. What are you talking about? That's what you want to know. And have her, if she will, make a list of things, just request a list of things that you have done that made her think that you hated her. You know, hate, is a word that kind of floats around. I mean, and in this day and time, they have something called hate crimes. And so hating is a crime if it's expressed by certain standards. Now, what these standards are, I don't know what they are exactly myself, but they say there are such things as hate crimes. I've never seen the list of what constitutes a hate crime, but presumably there is a list somewhere, at least, I guess, on somebody's part, but I haven't seen it or heard of it, what the list is.
And that's what confused me, because when I go to work, I go in, I'm very courteous. I always say good morning, ask anyone if they need help, but I stay to myself. I take my lunch to myself. I don't even interact with people outside of what needs to be done to get my job done.
Well, that's just continue to do that. Don't worry about it. See, worry is one thing you don't want to do. And what gets rid of worry? Answers to questions. Answers to questions gets rid of worry. Mm-hmm. Because worry comes about from being confused about what's going on. Mm-hmm. That's what people worry about. That's the nature of worry. You don't worry about anything that you got under control. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Simply because you have it under control. Mm-hmm. So how do you get things under control? Questions and answers.
Questions and answers, yes. Ma'am, let me ask you this, if I may. You did inquire when this was brought to your attention. What did you do, or who said that you did what, and you were refused the answer, or they wouldn't tell you who it was that made these allegations against you?
Yes, sir. I asked, when this allegation was made, I asked who said it and why she felt that way, and she refused to respond to my question.
Okay. What does she do then, Mr. Fuller? She did ask a question. She was trying to find out where this information was coming from. What does she do then, in that case?
The person didn't give a name?
No, she refused to answer my question. She refused to tell me who said it.
The person would not give a name?
No, and she also refused to tell me why she feels
okay, then you report that to the supervisor, of course, and call for an investigation to find out what's going on.
Okay.
That's, I always say, stay in the inquiry lane. And you are not supposed to be part of the investigation. You just show the documents that you have, the emails, and ask the supervisor to start an investigation to find out what this is all about. Mm-hmm. Because you don't know anything about it, presumably. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. And let them investigate and make a report back to you as to what this is all about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's all. You don't have to worry about it anything. Just report it to your supervisor. Just make a report and just hand copies of what you have received to the supervisor and say, since this is job-related, that you're requesting that they make an investigation as to what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And they let them go and find it out. You don't bother with it at all. Okay. Let them find out.
All right. Thank you, ma'am, for your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
All right. Mr. Fuller, let me do this. Talk to him at radio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here are three that I'm going to share with you. All in the Family with S. Yolanda Robinson. This is Libby with Libby Rand. And, of course, one of my favorite shows is New Money with Drew and Janae. Now, here's the thing. All these shows are exclusive to TalkTameAtRadio.com. Now, all you have to do is go to the TalkTameAtRadio.com homepage, click on programs, and give a sample of the programs that we have listed there to see if you like it or if you don't like it. That's all you have to do. And if you do, then, hey, like it, share it, whatever you have to do with it. But all that is from TalkTameAtRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is here to answer or give suggestions to your questions. And we are speaking today, it was suggested, a topic of greater confinement. Now, it is on page 143 in the Word Guide. That's an additional book that you can get for purchase. Mr. Fuller will talk about this and the regular United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept book in about 20 minutes. He will talk about that. But you need to get this book so that you can see, review it, and go over these terms or what he has put down and suggested. So anyway, he's going to talk about that. But page 143, for those of you who do have it, you can look at that and see what's going on. Okay. We have a question. I'm sorry. Caller. Okay. Go ahead, caller. I am so sorry. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. I appreciate it. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I had two questions, and I do believe that they're both related to greater confinement. So my first question is that in the state of Chicago, there was a bill that was passed that is going to legalize the substance that many people call marijuana. And many non-white people, I was particularly speaking with some victims yesterday, and they said that this is a victory due to the amount of black men and women, or specifically males, that are incarcerated. And my comment to that person was, I find it very interesting what white supremacists find as important. Mr. Fuller, I guess my question is that why are non-white people so satisfied, and this is just my assumption, with doing everything and calling things victories other than ending the system of white supremacy?
Because we're not aware of it. How many black people on the planet go around thinking about the system of white supremacy as the dominant thing in their entire existence, as the thing that controls every move they make? Very few black people, very few non-white people. If you say something like that, they look at you blankly for the most part. They don't dispute what you're saying, but they don't even realize what you're saying. I mean, white supremacy, what are you talking about? In fact, that's been the reaction of many people of color when I have mentioned the term white supremacy. They'll say, oh, you're talking about those fellows that ride around and, and throw bricks through windows and wear swastikas and whatnot and always shouting the N-word. Yeah, I know about them. I mean, they're bad people, but that what does that got to do with what I do every day? But see, what the dark-skinned people of the world don't understand, it has everything to do with what you do every minute of every day, wherever you are. But see, we don't realize it. When you're born in prison, you're not aware of the prison. You're not even aware of it. Somebody says that you're in prison, you say, what are you talking about? I'm free. I go where I please. Yeah, you go where you please in the prison yard, which is the entire planet, according to somebody else's dictates. You migrate when the white supremacists make it unsuitable for you to stay where you are. But you think that this is some type of phenomenon that has nothing to do with racism. When if you're a person of color, it has everything to do with racism.
Yes, sir.
Your crop failures and everything has everything to do with racism. If the water dries up in the river, it has everything to do with racism. If you're looking for a job, it has everything to do with racism.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't go to a school and learn how to do things that will help you to sustain yourself and prosper, it has everything to do with racism. Everything, not some things, everything. It's all being controlled by that. But when you don't understand white supremacy, like I put in the front of the basic textbook, if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. That's a guarantee. That's not optional. You're going to be confused about everything in your entire existence in every area of activity. And as is economics, you're going to be confused about everything in economics. Education, you're going to be confused about everything in education. Entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, you're going to be confused about everything in religion. If you don't understand racism, you're going to be confused about everything dealing with sex if you don't understand white supremacy. Everything about sex is going to be absolutely confusing. And, of course, war, and what war is about, which is any type of conflict and whatnot, but the major war, the only one worthy of the name war, is the system of white supremacy itself. And everything that takes in, which is everything, that's war. But if you're not going to understand any of the conflicts going on the planet, I don't care what it's about, if you don't understand white supremacy. That's just, now that statement that I just made, or those series of statements, are either true or false. The more you understand about white supremacy, what it is and how it works, then you understand everything for the most part in all of the areas of activity about what people are doing on this planet, when, why, where everybody's going here. These people are going there, these people are doing that, what the stock market is all about. You got to understand white supremacy.
Excuse me, Mr. Fuller. I hate to interrupt you, but the music is playing. We have to take a break, but we'll come right back to that. The main topic today is greater confinement, and we still have a caller on the line. Caller, what is your second question for Mr. Fuller?
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. I appreciate it. Mr. Fuller, the white supremacists have what I like to call perfected the use of racial showcasing. Last week, there was a quote-unquote reparations hearing to where they had numerous non-white people that were giving their case of why quote-unquote descendants of slaves, a.k.a. victims of racism, white supremacy, should be given some form of compensation. Obviously, there was no talk of ending the system of white supremacy and creating a system of justice. Mr. Fuller, I'll speak transparently. For myself, at many times, I was a coward, and I was afraid of even speaking or trying to do something against the system of white supremacy. I don't know if that's an adequate term to use, but my real question is that what I wanted to know from you, and just your personal opinion, what can other non-white people and other black people that are listening to this line, what can they do to develop the same courage that you have? And here's the reason why I'm asking you that. You may not stick your chest out or do certain things, but Mr. Fuller, you had the courage to write this book. Mr. Bobby has the courage to do this broadcast. Gus T. Renegade has the courage to do his thing. Dr. Welsing had the courage to do her thing. And whatever it is to end the system of white supremacy. What can black people do to help develop courage so we can start doing things that are constructively help end the system of white supremacy? Thank you.
All right, caller. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, you just throw the word courage out altogether. It doesn't have any. It doesn't take courage. What I'm doing doesn't take any courage. I am not a brave person. It doesn't take bravery. You just call things like they are and then ask questions. you get any opposition from anybody, including some black people will give you opposition.
Mm-hmm.
So you just ask questions. Say, well, am I doing anything that I shouldn't be doing? Have I said anything that I shouldn't be saying? And if so, why? You can ask white people that. You can ask black people that. You can ask any people that. Because all you're trying to do is do the correct thing, which is what they say you're supposed to be doing. Everybody says that everybody on the planet is supposed to be doing the correct thing. Sometimes they call it the right thing. Do the right thing. Mr. Spike Lee made a movie called Do the Right Thing.
Sure did.
Very simple. Very simple. All right? Just do the right thing. That's where you hear everybody saying that. I don't care who it is. They will say, well, hey, you're doing the right thing. That's the right thing to do. So you just say, well, if it's the right thing to do and the right thing to say, am I saying the right thing? Am I saying the correct thing? Because the code says you're supposed to be more specific with words, so I prefer the term correct than the term right. Because the right, when you say right, that gets into a religious thing, and different people of different religions got different ideas about what right is, what right and wrong is. All right? So I say correct and incorrect because that's more mathematical.
Yes, sir.
That's more neutral as far as right and wrong is concerned. You know that if you strike a match to gasoline, that's not the correct thing to do if you don't want a fire. All right? So that's why I prefer to use the mathematical terms, and that would apply to anybody of any religion. Everybody, I don't care what your religion is, you know if you stand there, there's a can of gasoline there, and you light it, you know that you've got to get moving.
You better.
Yes. Regardless of what your beliefs are.
Yes, sir.
Because the fire and the gasoline are going to do what fire and gasoline do.
Yes, sir.
That's what I mean by correct and incorrect. So if you tap into that all the time, so you say, well, I'm not talking about people's ideas of quote-unquote morality or righteousness or something like that. I'm not talking about spirituality in that context, but I'm talking about cause and effect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's what you tell people in answer to your question. You just tell and ask questions. See to me? Just simply say, does white supremacy exist? Either it does or it doesn't.
It doesn't, yes, sir.
And if it doesn't, then you listen to the person who's talking. They'll say, no, that doesn't exist. You're just making that up, fella. I mean, you're going around creating something that's not even there.
Yeah.
So I'll listen.
Yes. I like what you said last week, Mr. Fuller, and all that. You said this, tell the truth. Just tell the truth. I love that. Yeah, I love that. To that brother, before we take this call, to the brother that called before, to add insult to injury, check out the Compensatory Emancipation Act of 1865 in terms of the reparations that you were mentioning. That's something else. The Compensatory Emancipation Act of 1865, I believe it is. Check that out. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please, with your question.
Sure. Hello, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby.
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask Mr. Fuller a question. I've heard him constantly tell us he does not know when racism began, and he would throw out several years. You would throw out 400 years, and you would throw out 2,000 years. And of course, we know what the 400 years mean, but as far as the 2,000 years that you always reference, are you referring to the Messiah in Christianity? When you heard people say racism began 2,000 years ago?
Oh, I've heard people say 6,000.
Okay.
Not just 2. I mean, that's 6,000 is a lot more than 2. Okay? But I'm talking about mostly from what I've seen just in some, you might say, pseudo-documentaries or something supposed to be based on fact. I've seen people who were considered to be servants or slaves in pictures that's supposed to be depicting black people as they were among white people as far back as the Roman Empire, which the Roman Empire was flourishing, say, around about 2,000 years ago. And so you can associate a lot of the things of just at that particular time in history, the time of Caesar Augustus and Julius Caesar and Caligula and all of that bunch. And during that time, in paintings, sometimes scattered throughout the world, you see dark-skinned people among what you would call white people, the Romans, but you would see them in servants' positions. They're standing around, I mean, as eunuchs in the harems and things like that. People, black males who had been castrated and then put in charge of the white females who are supposed to be protected and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And you're talking about somewhere around 2,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So how long has white supremacy been around? I say I don't know. And when I've been around people who, historians, they have argued about it and are still arguing, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a consensus yet.
Yeah, they're still arguing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That was just a question I've heard you make that statement many times, and I just wanted to hear an answer from your mouth. And thank you.
Yes, but what I try to do is just deal with, over the period of years, I just say, okay, well, regardless of how long something has been around and all the details of how they went about doing it and all like that, this is great to know. But what's even better to know, in my opinion, and this is where I've directed my attention, is what to do about it right this minute.
Yes,
what
sir.
to do about everything that is connected with it right this minute, wherever you happen to be on the planet. What do you do and what do you say? Because regardless of how long something has been in operation, if you know what to do and what to say and what not to do and what not to say to bring about the change that should be, then do it. And you can do this without even knowing anything about the history of it.
Okay.
If you know how to take something apart, you can see say some type of machine that's put together 300-400 years ago. But if you study the machine and see how the machine is put together, and you figure out how it works and what it does, and you decide to take it apart and make a better machine out of the material, well, you can do that without even knowing the whole history of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I look at the system of white supremacy. I look at it as a machine. It's just to look at it and see how it's put together and say, oh, it's put together, oh, they did this, and this screw is over here, and then they got a little anvil type thing that's over there. And so this is connected with this, and this is connected with that. And without knowing anything about all the names of the people that had anything to do with putting it together, I mean, a person who can study what they are looking at and they figure out how it's put together can take it apart.
Yes,
and
sir.
take that equipment, that same equipment that made that machine, which is what I'm trying to do with the system of white supremacy, and take the same ingredients and rearrange them and come up with something altogether different.
Yes, sir. All righty. Let's see here. Let me do this. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Just download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic today is greater confinement, which you can have a further explanation of that on page 143 of the Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide. And I bring that up because it is at this point where Mr. Fuller will speak about his book. Mr. Fuller?
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of what the book is about. And it's about a textbook workbook for victims of racism, addressed to how each person who is classified as non-white, things to think about, things to speak about, and how to speak about them, and what to not speak about them when you use words, because words are very important. Words are tools for getting a job done. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to use words that don't do the job that doesn't need doing. You choose your tools carefully. Every word that you use is a tool. Think of it like a pair of pliers, or a saw, or a hammer, or a fork, or a knife. Mm-hmm. These are tools to get things done. So you choose your words the same way you choose eating utensils, or farm utensils, or utensils, or tools for putting on a roof to a house. You use certain tools, or fixing a vehicle of certain types. And you look at what a vehicle requires to repair it and whatnot, and you make a tool for it and whatnot to fashion it the way that you want so that you get better efficiency.
Yes, sir.
Words are the same way. This is why you just don't throw words around just any kind of way. Just say anything, any kind of way. You know what to say and what not to say, precisely, word for word, in every situation, on the job, or in so-called an informal setting. What to say, what not to say, what to never say, okay? And things to always say, like you always be polite, always, as best you possibly can. Don't let anybody be more polite than you under any circumstance, no matter how everybody else is acting. You be the most courteous person in every setting. You say you're not going to let anybody be more courteous than you under every circumstance, as far as just words are concerned. Now, when people start going into physical activity, that's something else. But it's thought, speech, and action. That's what counter-racist codification is all about. That's what the book is all about. Thinking, speaking, and what to do, the action part. What to do, D-O. What to do and not do under every circumstance that you can possibly think of. Because you're going to be doing something all day long, everywhere you go. And chances are you're going to be saying something. You want to be very precise with what you say to everybody. And you want to be very precise in what you do, and for sure, what you definitely don't do in every circumstance.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And that's what the book is about. It's addressed to the individual person. You don't have to check with anybody once what the book calls, you codify yourself. But go to producejustice.com and start your journey in the codification, codifying yourself, so that you will know what to do and what not to do under every circumstance that comes up in your entire existence on the planet.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Let's see here. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call to get in contact with today's show. The topic is greater confinement, but as you well know, Mr. Fuller is also answering your questions either by phone call or by Gmail here on talktainmentradio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Mr. Fuller, earlier in the first hour, or in this hour, you mentioned something about black people are late. You were given an example. Why are black people late for work?
Well, for one thing, it's we have a long tradition of shunning work, but it makes sense. It's logical. Why? Because when you're not getting compensated, there's all kinds of stories about how lazy black people are. Black people are not lazy by nature. people are not lazy. Babies are not lazy by nature. All creatures, squirrels, they're not lazy by nature. All people are very active. Black people are very active. That's just like the old blues song by Fats Domino, I believe, called Blue Monday. He said, here comes Wednesday. Oh, hard Wednesday. I can't go out to play or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they say, then come Friday. And, he says, well, Thursday, he said, I'm beat to my socks. If anybody calls, got to tell them that I'm out. I mean, because Thursday's a hard-working day, but Friday, I get my pay.
The eagle flies. Huh?
All right. The eagle flies on Friday. See, then he says what? Saturday morning,
woo!
All my tiredness has gone away. Now, he wasn't really tired, physically. He's tired mostly mentally.
Yes.
But now he feels like I got a day off.
Woo!
So I ain't tired no more. He came right out of that bed Saturday morning, and he said he's doing what? Saturday morning now.
Yeah.
He's out on the stem to play.
Hit play.
See me? Yeah. See, black people, he's ready to dance now. He's ready to kick them heels up.
Woo.
Okay? Late into Saturday night.
Yes, sir.
Now, he ain't lazy now. How come he was dragging his feet on the job? Because he ain't getting paid nothing. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
He's finding every reason to dodge work.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just like the slave on the plantation. The smart slave was the one trying to get out of work.
Yeah.
Okay? You ain't getting paid, so you dodge every type of work, but over a period of time, you get in the habit of doing that, so you get to the place you don't even want to work for yourself. All right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, that old tradition of, black people are so lazy. And in the movie Gandhi, one of the viceroys or someone on his staff in India, back in the days of Gandhi, he said, you don't know what it is. It is a white man talking about trying to get these people to work. And the person that he was talking to, I think, was one of the generals in the British Army, Jan Christian Smuts, I believe his name might have been. He said, but, hey, you're working these people to death, and you're not giving them anything, so, yeah, you got to whip them to make them work. You got to dog them around. Because they're working for you. They're not working for themselves, okay?
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Okay.
That type of thing. And did I get away from the question?
Well, no, it was just the book. We'll finish up on the book, where we can get the book at.
Oh, yes. Okay. Get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com.
All righty.
And that's the method for ordering.
Okay.
And if you want the word guide, that's an additional volume to the basic book.
Mm-hmm. Which we are using the word guide today when we were looking up the term greater confinement. For those of you who have the word guide, or actually have both publications, that's on page 143 of the word guide, not in the revised expanded edition, but the word guide. See, that's why it's important that you have the book, so that you can look and see what Mr. Fuller has written down. Somebody wrote in and said, what about that emancipation thing? It's called the Compensatory Emancipation Act of 1865. I have looked that up, and it's something else. Basically, the people who had the slave owners got paid $300 per slave. Yeah, $300 per slave, and the slaves could get reparations, but there was a little thing in it. This was the thing: if they left the country, supposedly they could get the money, but I wouldn't trust that. But anyway, it's called the Compensatory Emancipation Act. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Okay, we are discussing greater confinement here in the last minute or two of the first hour. If you missed any of the statements in the first hour, you may want to go back and get the tape as we are progressing on. We're coming up on some questions and more of your phone calls. As a matter of fact, in the second hour, Mr. Fuller, we're going to deal with a question that has come up about passive aggressive behavior in the system of racism, white supremacy. We're going to deal with that and get your opinions on that. Let's see here, or suggestions. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic today is greater confinement. Now, you know, this is the second hour. It's the donate hour. All I'm going to say is if this concept or this program means that much to you, make a donation. Hit the gold donate button on the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and do it so that we can continue on. TalkTainmentRadio.com, we go where you go on the world's greatest radio. And, of course, you're in touch with the compensatory concept. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, along with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. If you'd like to call in, you can, 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. Before we take the phone call, Mr. Fuller, one of our listeners loyally wrote in he gave me the song that you were citing, Blue Monday. It says, Blue Monday, how I hate Blue Monday. Got me working like a dog all day. Here comes Tuesday, oh, hard Tuesday. I'm so tired, I've got no time to play. Look out Wednesday, I'm beat to my bone. My girl calls, gotta tell her I'm not home. She knows Thursday is a hard working day. Till Friday, I get paid. Oh, Saturday morning, all my tired has gone away. Got my money and my honey, and we're out on the town to play. Sunday morning, my head is bad, but it's worth it all. It's worth it all the times I had, but I've got to get my rest for Monday. That was that song, Blue Monday.
Yeah, because Monday is a mess.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got to get my rest because Mondays is a mess. And what he means is, hey, all for 5 days, I'm a slave, okay? But they let me have, a couple of days off, and that's when I come alive. That's the only time I can really breathe.
Yeah.
That's the only time I can feel like I'm somebody over on the colored side of town. All right, but we're gonna really kick it. All right, but then Mondays is a mess. So I'm right back in that again.
Oh yeah.
All right. So that says it all right there, and that it really, I mean, it encapsulates really what the deal is, and it's all being orchestrated by the people who have the power to orchestrate this.
Yes, sir.
They have complete control of your time, including your rest time. All right?
All righty. Thank you, Roop Dog. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, my question is about the 4th of July holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And about how that pertains to us as prisoners of war. I propose that prisoners of war should not be celebrating independence, as we are not independent today, but I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, according to what I've written in the code book, black people are not qualified to celebrate anything. Prisoners are not in a celebratory condition. Black people are prisoners of war. The non-white people of the planet in the system of white supremacy were born in captivity. We're still born in captivity, all of us. Everybody of color on the planet is born in captivity. Captivity to whom? To racist man and racist woman, the white supremacists of this planet. You're born inside of their prison because they dictate what you do in all 9 areas of activity and what you don't do. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. They dictate this to all of the non-white people on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to think, speak, and act according to what they allow you to do. So you're in prison. And so you're not, prisoners are not qualified. They can go ahead and do it, but you're not qualified to celebrate anything. But the white supremacists love for their prisoners to celebrate everything, including being in prison. Celebrate that.
Yeah.
Okay? Have fun. Get out there in the prison yard, and I mean, hey, just turn flips and sing and dance and play banjo. Slaves are always encouraged to do this.
To act a fool.
Entertain yourself. Entertain yourselves until you drop. But just be back on that job come Monday.
Yeah.
All right?
All righty. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, caller. Let's go to the Gmails. This is about passive aggressive behavior. Mr. Fuller, what would a codified response to people classified as non-white who are passive aggressive, in other words, people who say one thing and mean another, and if such persons are psychologically built that way, do I need to stay extra far away from them if staying away from them is the only solution?
If staying away from them is the only solution, yes. But you can go among any people. That's another thing. You can't, hide in a closet. You come out, and you should be able to go anywhere in the world and practice counter-racist codification in one form or another. Now, how can you do this and get away with doing this and keep doing it? Simply by just keeping the question open about what's constructive and what isn't. Everywhere you go, every day, I don't care where you are, if someone criticizes you, you say, okay, well, I want to do the constructive thing. So now here's a list of constructive things, because you're supposed to be always in a constructive mode, always. Never in a non-constructive mode. I don't care what it's about, where you are on the planet. You just raise that question to people who might have some criticism of what you're saying or what you're doing. And you say, well, okay, well, I don't want to do anything that I shouldn't be doing. Nobody should. Nobody on the planet should be doing anything or saying anything that they shouldn't do or say. Not for 1 minute. And I want to be among the people who are always doing the thing that should be done in every circumstance. So you just simply say, now, here are the list of things that I am trying to do, all right? Because I'm trying to produce justice always, and that is doing what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, if anybody is opposed to that, then you raise a question. Let him or her stand up and say so and give your reasons why. Why are you against me trying to guarantee that no person is mistreated, and why are you against me trying to guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help?
Yeah, you're asking questions still.
Yes, you just put it in the form of a question. And I found that everywhere I go, when I put things in the form of a question like that, everybody goes silent. Why? Because the conclusion I came to, how are you going to challenge that and sound like you're making sense? See what I mean? See, stay away from statements. Just raise questions.
Mm-hmm.
When people criticize you, don't start making statements, and certainly don't start criticizing them, even if you're criticizing them for criticizing you. Don't go that way.
Yes.
That enhances the argument.
Mm-hmm.
You're not looking for an argument.
Yeah.
You're looking for a constructive conversation. And what's the difference? An argument is designed to win arguments. But a constructive conversation is designed to come up with constructive results.
Yeah, looking for answers.
Meaning the solution to a problem.
Exactly. Okay. Was
and
that
you
it,
do this by asking questions.
Mm-hmm. Was that it, caller? Is this
Hello?
Is this a new caller? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, caller, I'm sorry I got you confused. And go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Can I be heard?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. Mr. Fuller, I wanted to ask you, could you give an example again, please, of how you go about producing justice? Say you got a room full of people. How do you go about producing justice in that room? I know in the past I've heard you mention an example. I was hoping you wouldn't mind mentioning one again. Say for example, I'm in a room and there's 7, 8 other people in the room, and we're sitting and we want to produce justice. What is the first step?
Well, for one thing, you ask, what are we here for?
Okay.
That's the first thing. If people are assembled in a room, what are you here for? I don't care what kind of room it is and what the people came there for. Everybody should be very clear of what they're there for.
Yes, sir.
And everybody who leaves there is supposed to leave there with something better than what they came in with.
Okay.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Okay.
I mean, you can first raise that point. What are we here for? And let everybody just stand up and answer. Don't help people with the answer.
Right.
Because everybody knows what they are there for. All right? So you just simply say, okay, we're all here. I know why I'm here. You should know why you're there. If you are there, you should know why you are there. And you came for something. It's something that you want by coming among these other people.
Mm-hmm.
So you just simply say, what are we here for? What are we here for?
Okay.
And you don't move to the second question before the first question is answered thoroughly and accurately.
Okay.
And with understanding by everybody who's there. See, because if you don't know what you're there for, everybody needs to disband right now. Everybody needs to just walk out the door. I mean, because people do that. People just assemble sometimes because people, and everybody's looking around waiting on somebody to do something or say something, some kind of miracle to happen. Too often that happens.
Yes, sir.
And nobody is asking a simple question, what are we here for? That's question number one. And once you ask that question, then after we leave here, did we get what we came after?
Okay.
Otherwise, what's the point in assembling for any reason and any two people getting together? You know?
Okay.
Why am I sitting here talking to you? All right? Just two people. And why are you talking to me? About what? In order to accomplish what?
Yes,
just two people talking. Not to say anything about a room full of people or a stadium full of people. What are we here for? You go to a ball game, everybody kind of understands we're here to see what? People play ball. That's why we're here. Duh.
Yeah. What's your second question, ma'am?
Not complicated at all.
What's your second question, ma'am?
Oh, okay, Mr. Bobby. Yeah, I was trying to listen to Mr. Fuller there. Okay, the second, Mr. Fuller, were you done answering that question? Because I do have.
Well, no, I'm not done answering the question until the question is answered.
Yes, sir. I'd like to hear the answer.
Do you understand the answer to the question?
Yes, sir.
Because the question was, when you assemble with people, you got to first have focus. F-O-C-U-S. Focus on what? On what you are there for. I mean, and whomever the speakers are said, now, we are here, assembled here, to come away from here with something that we didn't have before we got here and be able to specify exactly what that something is. Otherwise, you ain't got no business assembling in the first place.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Okay, now, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller, can you give, if you don't mind, an example of how is it that the system of white supremacy controls the thought, speech, or action of the non-white people? Can you give an example of how they control the thought? How do they control our thought? How do they put us in mental confinement? Can you speak to that, please?
In everything that we do in all 9 areas of activity. And what are the 9 areas of activity? Economics, how you use your time and energy. How do black people, for the most part, use their time and energy when the white supremacists are not making us do something in order to eat and sleep somewhat comfortably? How do we usually use our time and energy when we have what we call a day off, all right, or hours off, or some minutes to ourselves, as you might say? Just look at what we do. Look at what most black people in the northwestern hemisphere do, and I think in many parts of the world, when they have what you call leisure time, time to yourself, time to do a limited number of things that you're allowed to do in the prison yard of the system of white supremacy. What we do is show off to each other. And how do the white supremacists control that? Simply by having our minds set in doing just that. We look forward all of our days, everything that we do, if we stop and think about it and tell the truth about it. What black people in the northwestern hemisphere do, as far back as I can remember, is looking forward to showing off to other black people. We're going to buy something to show off. We're all in the department stores and whatnot. I mean, everything from a fancy department store, I mean, where they have real fancy clothes and jewelry and whatever, and, you know, and what the latest styles are and whatnot. What are you getting that for? What are you knocking yourself out, you know, making all those payments for? To show off. To show off to whom? Just stand in the mirror all day and look at yourself? No. You want to show off. You want to strut around in front of somebody. Who is this somebody you want to strut around in front of? Tell the truth now. It is other people that look like you. Because white people are not paying no attention to you at all anyway. They don't even want to see you. Get the heck out of here. I don't even want to see you. Except when I call you to do some work for me. And other than that, bye. and what you got on and what you're driving and all like that means absolutely nothing to me. Just get out of my sight. That's the white supremacist philosophy, okay? Until I call you to do something for me. Now you can come around, okay? So what does that leave non-white people to do? Strut around showing off to each other. And if you can't find something to buy to show off, or you can't, stand in the middle of the sidewalk, and show off by jumping up and down and turning flips, all right, then you do something like what? Young black people spend a lot of time doing what? Riding around, shooting guns. Now, you might not look at that as showing off, but that's exactly what it is. If you tell the truth, if you will tell the truth to them, and they'll tell the truth to themselves, they're saying, this is mostly what that's about. What is gangs about? Showing off. Showing off to whom? To other people that look like you that is in the other gang. That's it. And you show off by doing what? By shooting guns at them. Hey, there you go. He ain't wearing the colors. Shoot him. And then he shoot back at me. I shoot back at him. But what is it all about? What are you getting out of it? Since every time you fire a bullet, it ain't like somebody's paying you. It ain't like you're going to get a mansion or something. It ain't like you're going to do 2 or 3 years of this and then retire somewhere in some chateau in France. So what are you doing it for? Showing off. Dismal, pitiful, showing off. Because everything that black people do that's connected with that little pitiful showing off, our little parties and whatnot, our barbecues, showing off, showing off, showing off, showing off. And when you fall down exhausted from showing off, what have you got in return for your showing off? Absolutely nothing but a cocaine high. When I say cocaine high, even if you're not on drugs, showing off is a drug because there's no return on your investment. None. You just think that it is. And we got to stop doing it. The code says stop doing anything to show off. Don't show off to nobody because you ain't qualified to show off.
Okay. All righty. All right. Is that it, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Mr. Bobby.
All righty. Let me go ahead on here because I am way over the break, but I wanted to give Mr. Fuller an opportunity to answer the question. But please bear in mind that we are under time constraints, and there's certain things that we have to do, and I purposely do not mean to cut Mr. Fuller off in answering the question, but we have to do things at certain times. So no offense to you. No offense to you, Mr. Fuller. No offense to you, the callers, because your calls are important.
No.
But I have to do certain things. And this is one of the things I have to do here, which is to do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24-hour, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's 3 that I'm going to share with you. Conversation with Don Carina, The Quay Morgan Hill Show, and Stairway to Heaven. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage to give a listen to the shows, and we wish that you really would do that. Give a sample to them and see if you like it or don't like it. And then that way you can form an opinion on that. Remember, they are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Go to the homepage, TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic today is greater confinement, and we are trying or efforting to answer, get as many questions in as we can. By the way, next week, I know I personally don't celebrate the 4th of July, but anyway, next week, being that the 4th is next week, there will be no live show, but there will be a previous show that Mr. Fuller and I have done. So do not call in because I won't be here I don't know what Mr. Fuller is going to be doing, but I won't be here, so we're not going to have a live show. But the following week, we will have a live show. Okay, Mr. Fuller, I'm going to, Mario, here it is. It says, Mr. Fuller, could you please ask Mr. Fuller, I separated from my daughter's mother about 7 years ago, and we still have conflicts. When I communicate with her, I try to stay in the question mode, but I find it difficult because of the yelling, insults, and name-calling. Mr. Fuller, what is your advice on minimizing conflict in this situation, given that some contact is required because we have a child together?
Make every contact constructive. And the minute that is not constructive, you break contact until you learn how to make every contact constructive. That's the simple formula. There's no point in making contact with anybody anywhere on the planet if the result is not going to be something constructive. That's code. I mean, now, that may sound oversimplistic, but that's it. You minimize conflict by doing what? Minimizing all non-constructive contact. You cannot have conflict with someone that you are not in contact with. Now, if the result is going to always be non-constructive, shouting matches, name-calling, what's the point? Why just keep doing that? It's not working. You don't do anything that doesn't work. You don't keep at something that doesn't work. Once you see it's not working, you just back off. That's all. And you say, well, I have to have some kind of contact, and, after all, that is my daughter. No. Not if it's going to bring about more conflict than you had before you made the contact. Every contact is supposed to be constructive that you make with everybody on this planet for the rest of your existence. Otherwise, you avoid that contact. You avoid anyone who brings about conflict.
Mm-hmm.
That's the codified formula. That's rock solid. Now, you can re-engage at another point and see, well, time has passed. Maybe the mental condition has changed. Maybe I can make contact now. So you'll make contact.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute the conflict starts, the code says the exact words you use. I will talk to you at some other time. That's in the code book. That's what you tell anybody that looks like it's headed toward conflict. You say, I will talk to you at some other time. Now, you didn't say you'll never talk to him again. What you're saying now is not the time. I will talk to you at some other time. At some other time might be 2 days later, might be 2 hours later, might be 10 years later. But as long as you're getting conflict, break contact. That's it. That sounds harsh. It might sound impractical. But if you're going to have conflict with someone, every time you make contact with them, that is non-constructive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
We need some absolutes here.
Okay.
Codification is about absolutes. The white supremacists understand absolutes.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, it does sound like, at least by the tenor of the question, that this person is trying to make contact with, in this case, the child's mother, but it appears that every time that he tries to do that, then he's belligerently taunted, fussed at, yelled at, maybe even cursed at, where the contact is minimal. And if he walks away from that without seeing his daughter, what does that produce?
Well, you can't get these relationships the way they ought to be. See, that's another thing that black people have to understand. They say, black people have told me for years, Because I was that way at one time. For a long time, I was that way.
Really?
Not wanting to be bothered with the race issue.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. And people say to me now, many people, and I expect that. I don't need to be bothered with all this race mess. I got personal stuff to deal with. See, but your personal stuff is dominated by the racial mess.
Okay.
That's it. There's no way to run away from it.
Okay.
So none of your personal affairs are going to be anywhere close to the way that they ought to be if you're black.
Okay.
I mean, your relationship, you think you're going to have some girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife, and that the white supremacists are not going to dictate to you how all of that's going to go down? You don't know it.
Okay.
But they are controlling all of your affairs.
Now, this next person, I don't know if it's a real person or not. The usual suspects are in place, so I'm not going to mention what your last name is, but I'm going to say Seymour, and you know who you are. I will ask that question. I have to admit I'm suspect of it, but we have to be honest. So Mr. Fuller says, be truthful. So I'm going to ask your question, but I've seen that name before, and it troubles me. But anyway, I'm going to ask your question. Not now, but I will ask your question. Eye test. I will get to your question too. And Mario, the second part of your question, I may have to get to on another show as these others. But Jane and Seymour, and you know who you are, in eye test, I will try to get to your question. Caller, I will get to you after Mr. Fuller finishes his avoiding conflict. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes. Minimize conflict by minimizing all unnecessary or non-constructive contact. Now, when it comes to black males and black females in the northwestern hemisphere in the system of white supremacy, you will never be able to get it the way it ought to be. Now, everybody has to understand this. We're in a prison system. So actually, all of our so-called relationships will be nowhere near what they ought to be, because we are not in circumstances that should prevail.
Okay.
The system of racism will not allow it. Now, a lot of people say, oh, that ain't true and all like that. Well, go ahead and do what you're going to do, but the system of racism will not allow it to be the way it should be. Now, you can get it to be workable, but it's going to have a lot of defects. All relationships between black males and black females are full of flaws, riddled with flaws. That's going to be permanent, and it's getting worse. Look forward to that. It's going to get worse. Why? Because the white supremacists have decided that they're going to set it up so it will get worse.
Okay.
So the black females and black males will not be able to get along with each other in harmony in the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
That is not. And if for those who think that it can happen or that you can make it happen, you're faking it. Okay. There's a lot of things you just don't know. You're hiding from yourself. You're hiding the truth.
Yes.
Somebody is hiding the truth.
Okay.
You can guarantee that, because it's not set up to have the harmony that you want. The black females, their minds are set to go one way, and the black mind, male mind, is set to go another way. Set by whom? By racist man and racist woman. But we're not even aware of that. And we're not on the same page. And we're not going to be on the same page as long as we're in the prison system called the system of white supremacy. That's a guarantee. You're going to have these conflicts.
Okay.
All right? And you can make it work somewhat, have it workable, that's all. Nowhere near what it ought to be.
Okay.
But you can have some type of relationship, but you got to understand it's going to be loaded with poison.
Yes.
Loaded with poison. All of our relationships are going to be loaded with poison.
Yes, sir.
Because the white supremacists have made us loaded with poison.
Okay. And in relation to celebrations, should non-white people celebrate birthdays, particularly children's birthdays, since we should not be celebrating anything?
Well, you can start off doing that, but then you can curtail it as early as you possibly can so children will understand.
Okay.
Because you have to do it at a point. Now, what age? I'm not setting an age because I don't know. It depends on the level of understanding that the child has. But I know in a practical sense, and I've seen it happen, that you just wean them off, just like you wean people away from anything.
Okay.
By having them understand what you're doing.
Okay.
See, that's the first thing. And the earlier, the better. And you just say that, well, and give the reasons. Always give a reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And let the person, little by little, see your reasoning. This is how everything has got to be done ultimately, including everything between black people and white people in general.
Mm-hmm.
We got to come to some logical conclusion about the best way for our arrangements to be.
Well, Mr. Fuller, like you said last week, you said tell the truth.
Yes, just tell the truth. Everybody tell the truth. Every white person. See, some black people now, and this is terrible, what is happening now. Some black people wants to silence white people from telling black people what they really think. You don't ever shut a person off from telling you what they really think. Let them tell you what they're really thinking. Every minute of the day, whatever they think about you or anything else. The more a person is honest with you, the better. And that's in any so-called interaction between people. In personal relationships or so-called impersonal relationships or in societies. Tell everybody the truth.
Okay.
You've got to start with the truth. When people start being hypocrites and start lying and everybody's walking around smiling when inwardly everybody's frowning, that's a terrible situation. I mean, if you got a gripe or whatever they want to call it, I mean, be able to express it and be able to give your reasons for having it, all right? By talking about it, that's the way you solve what? All problems. Through the process of questions and answers.
Mm-hmm. Didn't there used to be a program called To Tell the Truth a long time ago?
Yes, there's all kinds of programs like that, even today.
Yeah.
Like truth or consequences and all of that.
Okay.
But everybody talks about truth, but most people run from it.
They have run from it. Okay.
Yeah, well, it depends on what the truth is.
Yeah. All righty. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, here's the question. Is constructive behavior available to black people? Now, before you answer that, I personally feel that constructive behavior is available to black people because you come on the radio for years telling us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Like if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything to some, our interactions with each other. So you come on the radio all the time telling us, giving us examples of what constructive behavior is. So here's the question. If constructive behavior is available to black people, then why don't we use it?
Because we have been taught to worship everything that's non-constructive. That's one of the first things you do with people when you want to make them subject. You have them to, and I have this in the textbook, how did I phrase it? I'm trying to remember how I did phrase it. Well, these are not the exact words, but it's in there. Several times I say it in different ways. But black people are taught to glorify everything that is stupid and to run from everything that is serious.
Wow.
We don't want to deal with nothing that's serious and constructive. If it's constructive, we consider anything constructive as being, that's not no fun. See, anything that's constructive ain't fun. Fun is doing something that is absolutely non-constructive. And we have been trained that way. Trained by whom? By the usual suspects, the white supremacists. We wasn't born that way. But we gravitate toward any kind of thing. If it's silly, call the black people. Or if we're fixing to do something that's absolutely silly now. All right? So, hey, any black people around, let them know it's silly time. And so if it's totally silly, totally non-constructive, going to be a disaster, black people, we go to it just like bees to honey. We're trained that way. We're not naturally that way. But anything that sounds like it might be a little bit constructive, oh, that's boring. Oh, no. That's all right for somebody that wants to do that, but I don't want no part of that. Well, that ain't no fun. But anything that's total nonsense and going to lead to a disaster, we want to be every part of it that we can possibly be. Now, why is that? We've been trained that way. That's why. All we have to do is break training. Say, wait a minute, where did I get this nonsense from? When did I start thinking that way? Hanging out with my homies? Well, why did my homies think that way? All right? It had an origin somewhere, and it's been passed down through the generations.
Caller, please turn your radio down, please. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
And that's all that it is. All we have to do is just break training. That's it. Get on another wavelength, and that wavelength is, hey, if it's not constructive, I don't want to be nowhere around it. Suppose that's a decision that we can make. And we don't have to train ourselves to do it. Just start doing it. Just start right this minute. If it's not constructive, don't call me. Don't contact me. When you think of something constructive to do or say, let me know immediately. I want to be a part of everything that has constructive value. Everything that's going to work for me and not against me, not only now, but in the future. I want to be a part of that. Everything that's going to work for me, that's going to make me have a healthy mind and body. I mean, don't bring me no drugs or none of that other stuff. I don't no offer me at Christmas time no alcohol or none of that. I don't want to be a part of anything that is non-constructive, folks. Yes. From now on, I don't care how non-constructive you've been up to this very minute, but right this minute, every non-white person on the planet, it's not difficult. You just make that decision. I'm not doing non-constructive stuff no more. Starting right now.
Okay.
That student sitting right there in the classroom would not say that foolishness that I've been doing over there at the frat house or the sorority house and all that. I'm not doing no more. That hazing and whatnot. I'm not going to be a part of none of that foolishness. That's a bunch of stupid stuff. I mean, and black people shouldn't even be known to be anywhere near around that kind of stuff.
Yes, sir.
And I just happen to think of sororities and fraternities. That tradition of hazing, black people say, oh, no, the white supremacists might do that over there in that frat house. When we welcome somebody into our sorority or our fraternity, we don't do anything that's vile. We don't do anything that's non-constructive. We don't have any initiation period where we do horrible things to people or even talk in a horrible way to them. We don't do none of that. I mean, we don't do none of that stuff like they might do in Annapolis in the military and whatnot. I mean, talk harshly to people. No, we are polite in this fraternity. We are always polite. We are ultra courteous in this sorority.
Yes.
We are ultimate. I mean, we go to the ultimate. We go out of our way. I mean, and never a discouraging word. I mean, all of that hazing and whatnot. No, we don't do any of that.
Okay.
No.
All right, now, Mr. Fuller, I have 9 minutes to go in the show, and I have a caller. But we have not talked about your book, so could you briefly just mention something about your book so I may get this last caller in?
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a expanded revised edition of the original 1984 edition of the textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of white supremacy. Racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. And all this is explained in the book. And not only explained, but it tells you what you, as an individual, it makes suggestions. It's not dictatorial. It makes suggestions that you can think about and act on if it makes sense to you about what you can do to make things better for yourself, first of all, in this system of racism on a daily basis, and by influencing others to do the most constructive thing in all areas of activity on a daily basis wherever you happen to be on the planet. Wherever you happen to be, no certain place, no certain time, you start right now to doing the most constructive thing that can be done under the circumstances that you are under. The most constructive things in what? In everything that you do.
Okay.
In everything that you say. And that's what the book is about. You can get it by going to producejustice.com.
Okay.
That's producejustice.com.
Okay.
Producejustice.com.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, as I've tried to clean everything out so we can get this last caller in. Caller, the floor is yours. You may speak with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Mr. Fuller, I wanted to ask you, could you explain the differences between blatant racism years and years ago versus hidden racism today? I was watching a video from the 70s, and it showed how in a white neighborhood, black people were starting to move in, and people were yelling the N-word, and they were just being mean. Versus today, that's still going on, but people are more, smiling and pretending. Thank you.
Yes, the white supremacy goes through 4 stages, and sometimes they go back to one of the 4. They'll be in the 4th stage, and they revert back to the 2nd stage or the 3rd stage, the characteristics thereof, and it's listed in the textbook for victims of racism that you can get by going to producejustice.com. The 4 stages. First stage is what? Establishment. White supremacy started somewhere. I don't know when, where. Some people say 400 years ago. Some people say 600 years. Some people say as far back as 2,000 to 6,000 years. I say I don't know. Why do I say that? Because I don't know. But I do know that it's here now. The system of white supremacy is the most powerful political and religious force among the people of the planet here in 2019. All right? So it went through 4 stages. Establishment means at stage 1, it got started. And then stage 2 is maintenance. You went from establishment, getting it started, to maintaining it. Just like you put together a vehicle or put together a recipe. I mean, you get all your ingredients together. That's getting it started. Then you maintain it. You start doing something with the ingredients that you have. You're making a car. So now you're maintaining that car. You got the car all together. You got to maintain it. You send it to the repair shop. You got oil, put oil in it. Got to change the oil and all that. So the white supremacist system works the same way. All right. So they maintained it, and then they expanded, meaning they say, well, hey, it's running really smooth, but let's make some improvements. So just like you do with a house or a car and whatnot, they made improvements in what they had started, the system of white supremacy. So they made improvements in the economic system, how they use their time and energy, their educational system, how they teach white people one thing, teach black people something else, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the the improvement part, the maintenance part. But the expanded part is you take in more people. That's the third stage. You expand it, meaning, and there's more people on the planet now than there was, say, 10,000 years ago, or 6,000 years ago, or even 400 years ago. There's more people now on the planet than there was then. So most of these people are people of color. So you're taking these people into your prison system. More prisoners are coming into your prison system. So you are expanding your prison system all the time, okay? Then the fourth stage is the refinement stage. That's the finishing touches. Like you put another coat of paint or a better quality of ornaments or gadgets in your vehicle or whatever. And that's what the white supremacists do,
yes,
like
sir.
you just said in the illustration. Now they welcome you. See, that's the refined white supremacist.
Yes.
Yes, they come and shake your hand and say, you know, how are you? I mean, you know, well, you moved into the neighborhood, and we just thought we'd have a welcoming committee.
Yeah.
So we are over here. The first thing we want you to do, we want to present to you, is a cake. All right?
Don't eat it.
Right. Well, you know, yeah, well, the cake will be good. I mean, they ain't going to poison you. You just got there.
Okay.
The poison is going to come later. Okay?
Okay.
When they have that orgy there, you know.
I'm out.
They want you to be the center of attention at the orgy. That's the way they do that.
Okay.
See, oh, yeah. They invite you over when they get ready to have that wife-swapping party.
Oh, I'm out of
Okay.
that.
Oh, yeah. And they want the black people to be the center of it.
Yeah.
Okay, because we know how to do everything that's trashy.
Yeah.
All right? You've got three things in the white supremacist system in interactions with black people, and that is what? The three T's.
Trashy.
Tacky.
Tacky.
Tacky. It don't get no better than tacky. If they try to improve on the tackiness, which way is it going? To the second T. It's going to get trashy.
And then terroristic.
If you don't believe it, test it. It starts off tacky to start with. It's not going to get no better than tacky.
Okay.
It'll never be the way it ought to be.
Okay.
But it's going to be tacky. All right? Now, when they try to improve on the tackiness, then you're going to move to the second T, which is trashy.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And the black people, you know, we know trash, okay? And they're going to give us plenty of that. They'll dump that on you in the refinement stage.
Yes.
Okay? It's got to be trashy if black people are going to be involved. Now, if you try to improve on the trashiness, it ain't one way for it to go. Either back to tacky, or two ways. Either back to tacky, or you go into the third T, which is what? Terroristic.
Okay. Here comes.
Black people even do this among ourselves.
Okay, here comes the music, so you know what that means.
All right.
All righty. Hey, special shout out to my brother in South Africa. He finally gave me the correct pronunciation. C. Parparlo. Thank you very much. Or Parparlo. C. Parparlo. Thank you. Callers, from my heart, thank you for all of your calls. Mr. Fuller, thank you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks because next week, you know, we got to do that thing. Thanks for listening.
Yes, sir. The shutdown. Thank you.